Order. Welcome to this third panel in our Select Committee's inquiry into the Industrial Relations Bill and industrial relations in the UK. I'm immensely grateful to Jennifer Kearney and Stuart Morgan for joining us from Amazon. You're very welcome here this afternoon, and thank you for making time in a busy schedule to come and give evidence to us. Jennifer, perhaps I can start with you. Does Amazon basically hate trade unions?
I'd like to start with introducing myself and sharing with the committee what I do.
Don't worry, we've got the biography, so
Great.
we're just going to jump straight into the questions because the time is against us. And the question is, does Amazon basically hate trade unions?
Amazon is really clear that our preference is working directly with our employees. It's worked very well for us in the 25 years that we've been inside of the UK. Should our employees choose union recognition, union representation in any way, of course, we'll comply.
Okay. Now, you'll be aware of a report that was published by one of our sister committees in the United States on Sunday by Senator Sanders and others. And in that report, the allegation is that Amazon basically, in the report's words, accepts injuries to its workers as the cost of doing business. Is that true?
I am aware of the report that's been published. At this point in time, I've not had the opportunity to go through the details of that, but I'd like to reassure and state that actually for Amazon, safety is our number one priority. Mm-hmm. It always has been and always will be. And we benchmark ourselves against health and safety executive data. The data for the period 2022, which is published on our safety blog, actually states and proves that Amazon is 50% safer in terms of when compared to other businesses within this sector.
Yeah.
I would say
that's 531 injuries per 100,000, and as you say, the last published figures were 2022. Why have they not been updated since then?
So the actual data demonstrates that in 2022 there was 77 million hours worked, which gives you a kind of scale of the size of our operation. Mm. The data on that blog, which is in the process of being updated, demonstrates that actually that is one incident every 132 years. So our priority is safety. And that has always been the case.
The question was, will it be updated? The data that we've last got published is 2022. Are there plans to update that data?
We're in the process of updating the data. We are confident that actually we are making improvements in our safety. So that is demonstrated by the fact that on an annual basis we complete over 350,000 inspections each year. We continue to invest in automation within our network, which is again improving our safety. We engage with our employees through safety committees, and all of these are active ways in which we continue to improve. But we're not complacent in this. One single safety incident is too many. And we will continue to improve in this area.
But you're planning to update that data and publish it when, do you think?
I'm not able to confirm an actual date at this point, but the reason that we set up the safety blog back in 2022 was that we wanted to actually be transparent around our record with safety. There are many allegations that have been made around the safety. When those have been investigated, then they've been proven to be untrue. So we saw this as an opportunity in which that actually we could support and help people to understand.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just run through just a few things just to sort of check. So at the moment in warehouses, people work a 10-hour shift. Is that standard?
Our standard shifts are 4 10-hour days, highly desired by our employees. It gives them the balance that they have to live their life. We also offer flexibility so that they can, make a change to their schedule on the spot, which we also see our employees do. We also, of course, employ part-time employees and individuals who are on more flexible schedules. It's one of the things that Amazon does best.
Yeah, and within the warehouses, there is, in a sense, an algorithm that helps set targets for the amount of picking, for example, that a worker might need to conduct on their shift.
In Amazon, we use technology for a whole different range of reasons, as you would anticipate, whether that is tracking goods through different stages of the process within the warehouse, whether that is around the security of our sites, and also, as I've explained, in terms of the introduction of technologies to improve our overall safety. Do we set performance targets? Then, like many other businesses, yes, we do set performance targets.
Yeah. And those performance targets may change day by day?
When we set performance targets, we are thoughtful, we're considerate, we take performance data over an extended period of time so that it avoids looking at specific days or accepting that there are fluctuations. We also are considerate in that we take into account whether the employee is training in a new skill, or that they may be learning or at a recently joined the business. So these are all different types of inputs that we take when we're setting what our performance targets are.
And you'll be aware of the allegations, because they've been reported by the BBC, that such as people's fear of missing those performance targets and perhaps losing their job, that they are urinating into plastic bottles to avoid taking the time to go to the bathroom. Is that true?
I don't recognize that in the 7.5 years. I don't think Stuart would say the same for his 10 years at Amazon. When we're in our buildings and we talk to our employees on the shop floor who are doing meaningful work for our customers and are proud of their role, they tell us about the way that they feel fulfilled and they're able to provide for themselves and for their families. So simply don't recognize that. Okay,
and Mr. Morgan, you would confirm that you've not heard that allegation either?
I've spent 10 years working in frontline positions, leading buildings across the entire Amazon network. I don't recognize that situation. It is a common myth, which is untrue. We do measure performance of our employees. We do not monitor their movements in the building. We simply track performance when they are on task. And at any point in time that they need to either use the facilities, they need to make an important telephone call, or they have an engagement with a leader, then that is stopped.
Okay. And you'll be aware too then of an observer-led investigation that reported over 1,400 ambulance call-outs in a period of just 5 years. I mean, that indicates an environment that's not terrifically safe to me.
I would disagree with the premise of the question, and allow me to explain. So the first point is that if an employee at any point needs medical attention, which is beyond what our capable first aiders can do, would we call an ambulance? And the answer to that would be yes. However, I think it is oversimplistic and not correct to make a correlation between ambulance call-outs and whether an environment is safe or not safe. And if I could share the experience of my time within Amazon and leading buildings, whenever there would be an occasion that an ambulance would be called to site, then I would be informed of that matter, because safety is our priority, as I've stated. And in the majority of those cases, the situation is that for what we would describe as a non-work-related incident or a pre-existing medical condition, and those were for the majority of the cases. So it is an oversimplification to state that a high ambulance call-out rate leads to an unsafe environment. And I would just reinforce the point that I made earlier about our data and how we benchmark against a health and safety executive, which demonstrates...
Most employers don't have to call ambulances 1,400 times in 5 years.
I want to point out that we employ 75,000 employees over 100 locations across the entirety of the UK.
There's 50,000 people work in the Palace of Westminster each day. We don't call ambulances 1,400 times over the course of 5 years.
I think the data that Stuart shared speaks for itself. But as we shared earlier, one incident is too many. So we work actively hearing from employees, hey, what can we do better or different for you? Every time we have an idea or a concern brought to us, it's our obligation, but it's also our privilege to support them and to make sure that we're doing everything as safely as possible.
Well, if one incident is too many, how would you explain the case that we were given just an hour or two ago of a 30-year-old man who got chemical in his eyes, and we were told that Amazon didn't or wouldn't call an ambulance because there were an excessive number of ambulance call-outs compared to other sites? It wasn't until he got home that he was able to go to hospital, and tragically it was too late to save all his vision, and he now only has 20% vision. Is that a case you recognise?
I don't recognise that specific case. If you have details of that case, then we would write a follow-up. What I can say is that for any incident that does take place, then we conduct a thorough investigation of that.
So it was on the 6th of October, I think, 2022, that Mr. Bezos says that we, Amazon, are going to be the Earth's best employer and the Earth's safest place to work. Is that now true?
We are getting better every day. What you'll see inside of our buildings, and we'd like to invite each of you to come and see either any of our buildings at any point. You'll see a place where we care deeply about employees. When I say we, that's every single one of our site leaders, our HR teams inside of our building. You'll see us continually getting better. As we shared, we're not complacent, even though the data says that we are a very safe place to work. I also shared about some flexibility and some other things employees tell us they cannot get anywhere else. I hear constantly, this is the best place that I've ever worked. And that is from multiple experiences in multiple of our buildings across the entirety of the UK.
Well, let's turn from safety to pay then. I think you've said that you're on a journey to become the Earth's safest place to work rather than you've reached that destination. So when we look at your SEC filings and we look at the breakout for sales in the UK, we can see that between 2018 and 2023, Amazon UK's sales have grown by 132%, but growth in pay for frontline workers has been 42%. So are you basically profiteering from the hard work of employees and not giving them the full measure of their reward?
Now, what I would like to just to reinforce is in terms of where our current position is on pay. And that is both above the real living wage and the minimum wage. It gives the opportunity for our employees working 40 hours a week across 40 days to be earning as a startup or a start position of £28,000 to £30,000. Now, when we set our pay, we go through an annual process and we take into account a number of different factors, including economic data points. We are confident that, and we do benchmark against other businesses, and we are confident that we are offering a fair rate of pay. It's one of the main reasons why employees actually choose to join us as well. And
it's not just pay, it's a benefits package that includes personal medical care, income protection, where we go over and above for our employees to make sure that they're choosing us. And the data shows that people want to work at Amazon, not just because of pay, but their total compensation.
So, I mean, when we look at the premium, for example, that you pay over national minimum wage, we can see that September 2024, the premium over minimum wage was about 15% for low-paid workers, about 22% for higher-paid workers. That's now fallen to a 10% premium for lower-paid workers and a 17% premium for higher-paid workers. And I suppose we're looking at that alongside 2023 Amazon UK Services limited profits of 280.5 million. And I guess the question is, who leads the conversation on workers' behalf about how they get a bigger share of that almost £250 million worth of profit?
I think that growth in national living wage is some of the reason why you'll see that too. I think many of us, from a business perspective, have been trying to keep up with how much that's moved over that same time period that you mentioned. When you ask the question, which I love to answer, about who is advocating, this direct relationship that Amazon celebrates with our employees, the answer is the entirety of our leadership team, listening through multiple different channels to employee voice and responding. Pay is something that we've heard them say is very important to them, and as Stuart has pointed out, if you ask them why they work at Amazon, that we hear often that's the number one reason, because we pay competitively.
Do you want to add, Mr. Morgan?
I'd like to just reinforce the point about that our employees join and stay with us, which is an important point, which is not just based on pay, but also upon the industry-leading benefits package, which Jennifer has talked through. But also, I think another area where we focus is around our skill development as well. We have an internal program called Careers Choice, where Amazon contributes to up to 95% of the fees over a 4-year period to upskill our employees. And that's an important point. And it's one that 20,000 people have now had the opportunity to actually upskill. When I talk about upskilling, that could be anything from HGV driving to cyber security. We have almost 10% of our current employees that are enrolled in that scheme. So I think it's important to take a step back and think about not just pay, but also in terms of benefits and also the focus around how we can help develop a person's skills.
Well, we've just heard this afternoon that there's very few people who work for Amazon for more than 2 years and don't have some kind of injury that they've sustained at work. Is that true?
It's simply not true. It doesn't match my experience. The data also doesn't say that at all. In fact, what we hear is employees are looking for more opportunities to grow inside of Amazon, to learn new skills, to work in different areas inside of our buildings.
Okay, thank you. The challenge we've got, I suppose, is that we've got a company that is rich enough to put a man into space, but we've got very conflicting stories about how safe it is to work at Amazon, and we've got clear evidence that pay has only risen about a third as much of sales. But let's get into some of the issues behind that. Charlie Maynard.
Yeah, thank you. Listening to your statements and what we heard an hour ago, it's starkly different. It's unrecognisable. So we heard about the battle to get off £10 an hour, and yet we've just heard what you said about pay. And then, I guess what really sticks in the throat a bit is the scale of the company. And, in 2023, Amazon paid 18.7 million of current tax on 27 billion of sales, and 932 million in direct taxes on corporate tax, business rates and digital services tax, 3.45% of sales, which is, minimal, and it sticks like an incredibly unfair dynamic between on and offline. And given all that, it just doesn't seem at all reasonable, and you coming in here and saying, they love working here, when an hour ago we've just heard the opposite. It seems like we're kind of Kafka, kind of. Just
put it to a question, Mr. Maynard.
Do you think it's fair to be paying that little tax in the UK as a company?
What I can say at a high level is that Amazon pays all taxes that are required to do so.
I get it, but the question was, do you think it's fair? If you just a yes or no is good.
So my position on this, and you have read my bio, I'm a HR director. I'm not able to talk in detail about our financial position, our tax position.
If you're not going to give me an answer, that's fine. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, we're going to move it on. Mr. Weston.
Mr. Morgan, you mentioned, you said quite categorically that transparency is important in Amazon as a culture. Can you confirm, when was the 2022 health and safety data published? And secondly, do you actually provide performance targets for health and safety within your facilities for employees to see, so they can see what is their performance this year versus last year in terms of health and safety, but also how does it compare to your other facilities in the UK?
I'm not able to confirm an exact date when the health...
You could come back to us, couldn't you?
I could, using the data that was on our safety blog, which is what I referenced in terms of how we benchmark ourselves against Health and Safety Executive. Yes, we're able to confirm that.
And the second point?
Second point is the performance data that we consider, which takes me back to the earlier conversation, is around performance.
Do you publish it in your facilities for employees' visibility?
If the majority of our employees are highly engaged, and my experience is when I'm on the shop floor, then frequently an employee would ask what is their performance level, and if an employee was to ask what their performance level is, that is something that we would share with them.
I understand, but I'm just coming back to your point that you earnestly made, that you said Amazon is a very transparent organisation. I'm not hearing that in your reply.
I don't recall using the word transparent. We talked about the culture of Amazon being a day one culture where we're focused around innovation and that we're focused around employee experience.
If I can jump in there, I wanted to say versus publishing, what would feel very normal inside of one of our Amazon buildings is to have a conversation with your manager. So what's going well? What do I need to improve? Maybe there's an accommodation, maybe there's a barrier, maybe there's an idea, a change to a workstation that we can make to be able to support you. So the conversation is very much one that would take place between two people versus publishing or reporting.
Okay, Antonia Vance.
Thank you, Chair. We heard earlier from some workers at VHX4 in Coventry. And I'm interested that you mentioned that common management practice of talking to employees and giving feedback, providing accommodation where accommodations were necessary. We heard the story of one of your employees at VHX4 who had had a heart attack, was put on duties that were appropriate for what she was able to do, but those accommodations were withdrawn as a result of her union activities. We also heard a number of stories based from that fulfilment centre of workers who had experienced injury at work, being asked to do too much, being asked to load from the back of vehicles on their own, to lift heavy weights above their heads, and of the rate of injury in that workforce. Is it just the case that Coventry BHX4 is a uniquely dangerous Amazon facility to work in, or is that the case for the rest of the country as well?
I'm going to disagree with the premise of the question altogether, and I want to share a little bit of data. As we heard earlier, often employers would have a different version of events, and as you shared, sir, earlier, unrecognizable would be exactly how those claims are. We've asked employees at the Coventry location 5 times this year, would you recommend Amazon as a great place to work to your friends and family? And all 5 times, 87% of the employees said yes, 87% or more. So what we're describing here is a place where people really do come to work to do a good job. They're choosing this location out of anywhere that they could work inside of Coventry.
May I ask if that's an anonymous question?
Go on, briefly.
Is that an anonymous question you ask employees, so it's untraceable to them and they believe that is...
Absolutely. It's anonymous. It's something that they can answer directly on a device that they're interacting with when they do their work every day.
We come to Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard a lot today about balance and the need to offset rights and responsibilities on both sides of this equation, employees and employers. Taking into account recent changes in the budget, what's your view of how things are for employers in this country? Is Britain still a good place to do business?
Firstly, the UK is an important country for Amazon. Last year we celebrated 25 years in business here. And across that 25-year time, we've continued to grow and invest. Actually, right now we employ over 75,000 employees. We're one of the largest employers. We've recently been recognised as a top employer from the Top Employee Institution as well. And we've hired over 10,000 additional employees to support our busy period through the Christmas period. So UK is important. We continue to grow and invest in our network in this country.
And then, in light of the changes, then is that you've talked about the past, then, so you've had 25 years here, and that's been 25 good years. What do you think the future is now in the current circumstances? Do you think that's changing? Have you another good 25 years here?
So we have a strong customer base here. We have an established network here. Our investment decisions are complex, as you would appreciate. I'm not here to share or not able to share any details around future investment decisions, but the fact that we've now been in the UK for 25 years and we continue to invest, I think that's an indication.
So if it's just interrupted, demand's obviously there, the customers are there, that's clear. What's your view of the environment in which you do business, the rules that you've got to abide by, things like that? Is it a hostile environment? Is it becoming a hostile environment? Has the pendulum swung away from you towards the employees rather than employers?
With our cloud computing business, Amazon Web Services has announced this year that we'll invest £8 billion over the next 5-year period. And that was something that was recognised by the Chancellor. Amazon has also recently attended the Growth Summit. So again, demonstrating how we are willing and to work constructively with this government and with Parliament around future benefits for this country.
Okay, Charlie Maynard.
Thank you. You mentioned 100 locations. What proportion of those have got union engagement currently?
We don't currently, or nor will we ever track union membership, so I'm not able to answer that question.
Okay. Do any locations have a union? They may have union members in them, but do they have an organised union inside the location?
Recognition? No, we have over the 25 years that we've been doing business here, not had a site vote for union recognition up until this point.
Thank you. Okay. And what's your response to the proposed changes to industrial relations as part of the Employment Rights Bill?
I think it's well, firstly, I'm fully aware that within the bill there are a number of areas that are being discussed, and we think that it's important that we get these decisions right. We do think that it's a matter for government and for Parliament to decide upon. We, of course, would comply with any changes that were made. Listening to the CBI and having the opportunity to read their report. Their recommendation around additional independent review and further consultation within those, we think that we can certainly see the benefits of that, because we think that it would be right that we get these decisions correct.
Are there any parts of the proposed legislation that you're particularly concerned about?
The CBI indicated the reduction in the strike notification period from 14 to 7 days. Whilst we respect the right of our employees to strike and understand that that can be disruptive, then that reduction from the 14 to the 7 day does create additional challenges. During the ballot at Coventry and strike action, we continue to maintain our operation because the majority of our employees wanted to continue to attend work, and we also wanted to be able to continue to provide and support our customers. So a reduced notification period then leads to additional challenges and potentially could then impact and increase safety risk. So, but I think the CBA has kind of articulated that.
Anything else that's particularly concerning?
There's a lot of places we're still wanting more information, and we're listening really carefully, learning as we progress to see where things land. Obviously, we'll comply and we'll work really productively wherever it lands.
Thank you.
Joshua Reynolds.
On that point, you mentioned strikes. If Amazon's such a great place to work, as you've said, that's what you hear time and time again from your team. Why have your team in Coventry gone on strike so much?
I think it's important to note that we absolutely support their right to do that.
That hasn't answered the. Excuse me. I've obviously we've sat here for quite a while now. I feel like I might need to get lessons from you both at some point in how to not answer the question that was asked directly. If you're that good an employer that you've explained to us so far, why have your workers in Coventry gone on strike so much?
I think they're executing their rights as we absolutely would protect their ability to do. I've shared some data around that building about how employees are telling us it's a great place to work. What I would love to do is invite you, sir, to come and see the building yourself.
I really apologise for interrupting you. My question was why. You haven't answered why. You've told me that, again, it's a great place to work and you've got all this data and I'd love to come and see what you do. Yes, but why? That's the one thing you haven't answered yet, which is the question I actually asked you. Why?
I think that's a good moment for me to, again, extend the invitation.
But it's a good moment for you to not... No, sorry, I'm going to really push this point. Okay. It's a great opportunity for you to not answer my question. If you are such a great place to work, and I'd like to congratulate you, you said you won an award recently on being a great place to work. If you are that great a place to work, why have your workers in Coventry gone on strike so much?
Our employees have the right to join a trade union or not to join a trade union, and we totally respect that.
I'm pulling teeth at this point. Neither of you answered that question so far. I'll ask it once more.
Yeah.
I'll ask it once more and then I'll give up because I don't think I'm going to get an answer. Why have they gone on strike so much? What is the reason behind it? You talk to workers every day, you've told us, and that's what your teams do. So when you ask them, why are you going on strike? What's their answer back to you? Why are they striking?
They were demonstrating their right to support the trade union that they were a member of, simply put.
Oh, sorry. Supporting a trade union isn't a legal reason for people to go on strike. What was the legal reason that they went on strike as set out in the paperwork that needs to be supplied to the employer in the relevant notice period?
You mean the ballot for strike action?
Yes, that's right. What was the legal reason?
There are multiple scenarios over the recognition attempts that the GMB has made.
We're not talking about recognition. We're talking about the 37 days of industrial action at BHX4 in Coventry. Paperwork needs to be supplied to the employer that lists the reason for strike action. What was the reason given for strike action on those 37 days in answer to my colleague's question?
Mr. Morgan?
Please repeat the question.
In order to take industrial action, a union needs to win a ballot. In order to have a legal ballot, they need to supply to the employer some paperwork that lists the reason, and it needs to be a legal reason. Supporting their union is not a legal reason. It needs to be a legal reason as to why they wish to take strike action for that ballot to go ahead and be lawful and not be challenged in the courts. What was the legal reason on the paperwork supplied to you why your workers at Coventry BHX4 went on strike?
That's one I would be willing to write back on. I don't have the information top of mind, or I can't recall it. We have been, over the series of 2 years, working with the GMB through this process. So we have responded back and forth for several claims, several allegations, I would say, that simply we don't recognize. So please let me come back on that one.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, you don't know why the people went on strike?
I think just to reinforce Jennifer's point that we'll write back on that. I don't have that detailed point.
Okay. You're required to be open with us as a committee. You're sure you don't want to lay out why the people went on strike now?
I guess I fully understand our responsibilities as in front of the committee.
Okay. Rosie Wrighting.
Thank you. So what level of access does Amazon currently permit to union representatives at its warehouses and fulfilment centres?
Okay, so actually we have a level of interaction, not just with the GMB but other unions as well. Any union members have the right to be represented at different meetings, and if that's the case, then we have unions on our sites on a basis when those meetings take place. Our position is aligned with other businesses within the private sector. We comply with the current regulations within this area.
And can I just confirm what level of access the unions have to your sites?
So in terms of access, could you clarify the question?
So access into your fulfilment centres and warehouses, at what levels are the unions able to come in at this time?
Currently, the access would be that they would have access in order to enable the meeting to take place with the union member and a member of the leadership team for that building.
The other part of the law states that we obviously would grant access as part of an access agreement as you move through the ballot period.
You've currently got no live access agreement because there's no live ballot period. So the answer to the question at the moment is no access, yes?
At this point, there is no access, but our position is no different from other businesses, and we're compliant with the current regulations. Now, if that access was to change, and I know that it is a point of consideration on this bill, then we would comply with that.
And sorry, you just mentioned that the unions come in for meetings.
Yes.
Do you feel that you create a positive environment when the unions are coming in to the warehouses and fulfilment centres? Are they welcomed in your buildings?
I think that trade unions have an important role to play. And all of our employees have the right to choose as to whether they're a member or not. In Amazon, our preferred way of doing business is through direct engagement with our employees, and we think that creates a more positive and engaging environment.
Okay. Antonia Vance.
Thank you very much, Chair. The GMB described to us a campaign of intimidation and interference at Amazon in response to attempts by its members to achieve union recognition at BHX4 in Coventry. What measures did you apply to put management's view to workers?
We were focused on executing a free and fair ballot process at this site. A couple things to note. Over 25 years of operation here in the UK, this is the first time that Amazon has ever actually been brought to a ballot period. So there was a ton for us to learn. Successfully so, I can tell you that we had 87% of the population inside a very large building with 3,000 people exercise their right to vote in the ballot period, which we feel very proud about. Not only that, we made sure that we were providing information and support. We had tons of questions that were coming our way from employees and some misinformation that we absolutely felt a responsibility to clarify.
How much did you spend on materials, consultants and other payments in response to the July 2024 ballot for statutory recognition? Your colleagues in the US, where they operate in a different industrial relations environment, as you will be aware, spent $14.2 million in 2022 attempting, unsuccessfully, to defeat union recognition attempts in the United States. How much did you spend in the UK?
There was a cost to this as a business, as you would expect. An example of that would be that we gave pay time off to all of our employees to enable them to vote and also to attend information sessions. Our priority throughout this entire process was ensuring that our employees had the information that was available to them to make that decision, and Jennifer talked about the turnout for that. It was also the first time that we'd been through this process in our 25-year history, and thereby we ensured that we wanted to get the right level of support, guidance, to enable us to ensure that we followed that process. That entire process was overseen by an independent assessor appointed by the CAC. And we followed that process in a fair and free way.
Of course, you could have saved yourself all the money you did spend by just doing voluntary recognition of the union, which would have been the approach that most employers would have taken. Now, I would say, I understand that your lawyers are Eversheds, is that right? And that one of the ways in which you spent money in the course of the recognition battle that you fought to prevent GMB getting recognition in that workforce was by asking Eversheds to do your job as managers, by undertaking all of the communication with the union on your behalf. Don't you think you could have saved that money and engaged with the representatives of your workforce directly?
As I think this body knows, this is a very complicated process, and it is very important that diligence is demonstrated through the entirety of the process in order not only to get it right from a legality standpoint, but also to deliver the right experience for our employees. So I think the answer to that question is we used a lot of care to make sure that the process was executed completely free and fair.
Sarah Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. In 2023, Amazon made about 575 billion in global sales, and that equates to being the 25th largest economy, equivalent to Ireland or Argentina. So a lot of power there, perhaps a lot of imbalance, we might say. You mentioned earlier about wanting to operate a free and fair ballot. So I just wanted to ask a few questions about perhaps the access, the equal access to different ways of communicating with people. So I'm going to start firstly by asking, how many meetings did you hold with workers at BHX4 to express the management's view in the ballot in the run-up to July of 2024?
We meet with our employees regularly. Our managers inside of our sites have, as we share, this direct relationship. So we have a process called Team Connects where we meet with our employees. We have start of shift briefs where we talk about the plan for the day. It is a very normal part of doing business at Amazon inside of our warehouses to speak directly to employees. So it would be
this is about expressing the views of the ballot, specifically the question, not about what you generally talk about day to day in dealing with, obviously, running the business. So specifically the management's views, how you express those and how many times you met employees in meetings to express those views.
Simply put, any time an employee would ask us a question, we would answer. So that would
you didn't organise any meetings with them directly and invite them to them?
We had multiple touch points with employees to answer the questions, not only about the actual process itself, but what a trade union could and could not deliver for them. Moments that where, again, there was an opportunity to clarify misconceptions or misinformation.
Did you agree a set number and then give the union the same set number to make that free and fair?
The access agreement was agreed by the GMB.
You have to agree to it as well.
Absolutely. It was,
So did you play by those rules or not?
It would be a really tough one for that question. I think the premise of it is what I'm arguing with. We talk to our employees constantly. So comparing
it's a simple question about how many times you organised meetings, which would be diarised. So you would have a list of how many times you had done that with employees. Because that's what the union would have to do in response.
Yeah, once again, every time an employee were to ask us about what this meant for them, we answered them as transparently
you had unlimited
as
access to express management's views on the ballot, is what you're saying?
What we're saying is that our entire approach to our industrial relations is based around direct engagement with our employees, and that we do that constantly through many different formats on a day-to-day basis. I think kind of what we recognise, and the point here is that actually we agreed the access with the GMB that was negotiated, and we followed that to the word, and that entire process was overseen by an independent assessor, and at no point was a formal complaint raised during that period or within the qualifying period.
So what about the internal apps, the TV screens, the notice boards that you could make use of? Did you allow the GMB to make use of those as well to make sure that it was a free and fair ballot?
As part of the access agreement, the GMB did have TV screens. They had a table available to them where they could provide not just the information on a poster, but on a pamphlet. We had 84 sessions of 45 minutes each inside of our building for them to speak directly to our employees. As well as during the access period, any employee at any point could speak directly with the GMB in a surgery-style small group conversation as well.
They were allowed unfettered access. They could speak with them at any point, anytime they wanted.
The unfettered, I would say, it's agreed as a part of the access agreement exactly how the process works.
Okay, that's very different to the story that we heard earlier and the types of messages that were put on those screens and the access that they had to tools and availability. So I'm interested that you think that they had that when they categorically clearly did not.
I think this is an opportunity to clarify the actual situation. As we've explained, we followed a process which was negotiated in terms of access. The entire process was overseen by an independent assessor, and at no point was any formal complaints made about access within the qualifying period.
And finally, did you bring any additional workers in to work for Amazon during that period of time? So you change the number of people that worked for the company during the time that you received the notification for recognition?
So Amazon is a retail business. It's seasonal and demand changes throughout the entire year. Thereby, our overall headcount, the number of employees within a building, not just Coventry, but at any across the network, changes from time to time.
The timing was just completely happenstance, that the number of employees raised significantly during that time period.
There were a number of additional factors which impacted upon the headcount within Coventry.
Can I just jump in there? I would argue with any raising of the headcount we're very transparent with the bargaining unit. We have to communicate that obviously to the CIC, and from the point where the actual recognition request was filed in March to the point of the ballot in July, the bargaining unit had actually decreased in size.
But in the prior year, when the GMB sought statutory recognition in May-June 2023, the bargaining unit, which stood at 1,400 at the point that they sought statutory recognition, increased to 2,749 in just 27 days. Now, is May-June a peak period of the year for you in your business, such that it would need an increase of 93% in the bargaining unit during that period? Or was that a transparent attempt to manipulate the rules to ensure that statutory recognition couldn't be achieved?
Throughout the year, there are a number of what we would describe as high-volume sales events, such as Black Friday.
November.
We also have early spring deals. We have summer
early
deals.
Spring deals. Is that in June?
We have 4 across the year, but the point here is that the Coventry building is a unique building. It plays an important role in terms of our operation. If you were to visit that building, you would note that we don't store goods or inventory in that building. Actually, we bring goods in, and then the purpose of the building is then to spread the goods across our network. As a result of that, in terms of the operational cycle or when we have high volumes going into that building, that is different to when actually you would expect a sale to be taking place.
I welcomed the opportunity to respond to the number of 1,400. So that is a GMB reported number and is simply not the actual headcount at that time period.
How much was the headcount, and what was the increase that you shipped in to ensure that the opportunity for statutory recognition was frustrated in May 2023?
The premise of the question is one I have to disagree with. So I think Stuart did a wonderful job explaining exactly why and how we staff based on volumes, how important the Coventry location is for us. I simply wanted to make the point that we provided the headcount in the bargaining unit transparently to the CAC through the duration, the entirety of the process, and never was that 1,400 number an Amazon reported headcount number.
Those could be numbers you could supply to us.
I'll take the request away happily.
Okay, thank you. Very good point.
Yeah. One of the things you'd said earlier was that you think Amazon's the best place to work, but we've heard earlier some cases where that simply isn't the case. I would be keen for you to take those away, and would you commit today to doing that, the specific examples that were raised in the earlier session, and speaking to the GMB, and if those individuals are happy to share their details with you. Firstly, that they will be completely safe in doing so, that they will not face any retribution and coming forward with those specific cases. For example, the person who had had a heart attack and their accommodations had been taken away and changed. And I would like you to come back to me with all the details of those individual cases and what you're doing to put those right.
We would be
that is the
happy
only
to.
way that you can come into this committee today and say that this is a good place to work. Because in that macro, you may come back with statistics, but there are specific people coming today and putting their case to you, and I want to hear from you the specific responses that you have to them.
We would be happy to. We care deeply about every single one of our employees, and so the specifics would allow us to do our due diligence and come back.
Thanks. I just want to come back to the question that Mr. Cooper posed at the top of this session. So you co-signed a letter to the Chancellor on the 18th of November on the economic consequences of the budget on UK retail. That was a letter that was coordinated by the British Retail Consortium. Were there any other points in that letter that you felt very strongly in agreement with that you wanted just to give to the committee?
Amazon, like any other business, benefits from a healthy economy, stability and confidence. And I think out of that letter, which we were a co-signatory of, it highlights some of the concerns that we had around the changes with the national insurance contributions and the impact that would have on cost. But at this, I don't have any additional input other than what's outlined in that letter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are a number of matters on which Amazon representatives have agreed to write back to the committee. Would you care to summarise them?
I will summarise them in a letter that will be sent after this committee meeting.
Very much.
Once we have the Hansard in front of us. Jennifer, Stuart, that concludes our session. We're so grateful for you coming to giving evidence for us as we try and light up the key issues at stake in this bill. I think most of us will be quite surprised that this is a £27 billion company in the UK. You've got a subsidiary that is making a £250 million profit in and of itself. There are, on the record, quite high calls out to ambulances, to support staff. There are sales that are growing 3 times faster than frontline wages. There's a remarkable lack of agreement between the evidence you've given us and the evidence that we've heard from others. And there is, frankly, a bewildering lack of grasp on the reasons for what was a really extensive strike to hit one of your facilities. So we will write to you with some follow-up questions, but this now concludes this panel and this session. Order.